Okay, welcome everyone. I am so thrilled to have Connie Shigoda on today. And Connie has written a book on nutrition. And when we chatted, we just had so much in common. So I just want to thank you, Connie, for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us and help educate others. And I wanted to, first of all, ask about your book and how you started on this journey.
Amy, thank you. And it is a delight to be here. I love to share. My book started many years ago. The idea was planted in my head by massage clients. I was a therapeutic massage therapist many years ago. And just understanding and learning about my clients' bodies prompted me to ask them questions, which typically led to their nutritional habits. And one day, one client suggested, oh, you should put all of this information in a book. So that seed was planted, and I kind of brushed it off. I've taught classes. I'll just take my class handouts and put them in a binder and call it good. My inner perfectionist stood up and said, no, if you're going to do a book, you're going to do it right. So that led my journey into an area I knew nothing about. So it was definitely a stretching. I don't know that I wrote the book wrote me, I think. So
Okay.
it's a delight. This is the second edition. Let's see how close I can get.
Okay.
Well, looks blurry.
I think it might be blurring a little bit. Oh, the wise woman's.
Wise Woman's Almanac.
Okay.
Uh, that might be because my background is blurry. Um, the book is really more about a seasonal approach to life. And I grew up as a farm kid in the Texas Panhandle, and we lived by the seasons. It wasn't called homesteading back then, it was just the way we lived. So that became the foundation for my book. And I borrowed much information from the traditional Chinese medicine philosophy, and that blended well. It followed the seasons that I had grown up with. We have seed time and harvest,
Right.
and that my grandmothers were great canners. Our cellar was always full of the seasonal produce. So I lived that way. So as I learned more through the traditional Chinese medicine, I thought, well, this makes sense. This is how I grew up. I didn't know there was a formal approach to it. It was, like I said, it was just living. So I just really dug in to what different foods offered in different seasons, how they help the body's natural functioning. And it's become my lifestyle. I've continued it as my lifestyle so that I do eat foods that are in season because different organ groups in our bodies need different types of food and different seasons. We need cooling foods in the summer, warming foods in the fall and winter, and having an understanding of which foods provide those nutritional needs, I believe has made a great difference in my personal health. I'm very thrilled to be in my seventh decade of life, and I'm on no prescriptions. I have no chronic pain, and I do believe no inflammatory markers when my doctor does my blood work. And I really believe that our mindset is hugely connected to our physical body, but I really
Absolutely.
believe eating the natural, garden fresh, field fresh foods in their season has a lot to do with that. So I've organized all my recipes by season. So I'm getting ready to get out my fall folder because then it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I love this recipe and I haven't eaten it for 3 seasons. So it's fun to have a new flavor. We truly can taste and see that the Lord is good when we
Yes.
try the seasonal foods in their season because it's a whole new season, new variety of foods present themselves to us.
Oh, I love that. Well, first of all, I was just so impressed when you told me your age and just how healthy and vibrant you are. And it's a testament to living that walk and sharing that with others. That's amazing that you've been able to do that. So thank you for being an example for so many other people. I did want to ask you if you could go through the seasons according to the Chinese traditional medicine. And if you could tell me a little bit about, you were talking about warming foods and cooling foods. Could you share some of that with us? Because I think that's fascinating.
I would love to. Since we're entering into fall, let's go ahead and start with some of the fall foods because the the climate changes, the weather changes, the temperatures change, and it's time to put our body doesn't desire to have the foods to keep its inner system cool. We want those warming foods, and there are so many benefits to root vegetables and to the fall and winter diet is definitely more sparse than spring and summer. But those hard shelled winter squash are they are abundant in nutrients and they help to keep the body warm, and we can eat less and still feel full. So they're not fattening foods. Also, I learned this from an Ayurvedic doctor out of Boulder, Colorado, and he suggests that we look at our dietary choices by the full year. Because if we
Okay.
just look from meal to meal, plate to plate, we're going to get very stressed out. We're going to get frustrated because going into the fall and winter season, we are in a higher fat, higher protein menu
Right.
program. But that's what our body needs right now. And that's why it's so important that come springtime, that the greens, the fresh fruits, the fruits are high in water content, so they hydrate us. They're high in vitamins and minerals. They help to cleanse and detox. The greens are excellent blood purifiers. And most women that I know about April for sure, we're to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, if I have to eat one more pot roast, I'm gonna I'm gonna shoot myself. So we're ready. I just crave a crisp green salad. That's our
Right.
body. So I'm ready to release the additional fats and proteins that we consumed during the winter. I mean, I love my well, I call it my Tex-Mex Arizona, Colorado chili, and I fix a big pot of that. I freeze a number of containers, and that's one of my favorite foods. It's very high in protein, and Grandma's Sunday pot roast is a favorite winter food. I don't eat it in the hotter seasons. So our bodies will receive that warmth and that nourishment because that's what it needs. But if we're looking at, oh my goodness, there's so many calories, there's so many fat grams, there's so much of all this heavy food, that's okay because winter is a short season, fall and winter. So come springtime, put those recipes back in the file, get out your springtime file, and go for the lighter, fresher, greener foods because that's what our body needs. We're flushing out, we're cleansing, we're detoxing, and that excess fat will melt away if we accumulated fat. I have found that by eating seasonally, I don't worry about winter pounds. So
Right. Oh, that's
there
a good
were
point.
even if there were 5 to 7 pounds, I don't worry about it. So I know that comes summer, spring and summer, the foods that I'm eating and the greater activity that I do, especially being outdoors, the body just knows what to do and it's going to get rid of the widow. And in our ancestral days, they needed that extra layer of fat to keep their bodies warm. We've got central air and heat. We don't worry about that. But
Right.
atomically and internally, our bodies are still on that clock. So
Mhm.
by following that, we're respecting our circadian rhythms and giving our body what it needs in that time frame. So going into fall and winter, the menus don't change that much. I I don't I don't eat my summer squashes because they're very if you cook zucchini or yellow squash, you get a skillet full of water because they are
Right.
highly hydrating. So the pumpkin and the butternut squash and the acorn squashes, those are more desirable in the fall and the winter, and along with your heavier fat or protein meals. And that gives the body what it needs. It gives it the strength, the endurance to get through those harsher seasons, which we don't have harsh seasons like our ancestors did. But then coming into the spring, like I said, the berries and the greens help to cleanse and detox. And we move into the summer where our body really desires the cooling foods. And you've heard the expression, cool as a cucumber. And we all
Yes.
know watermelon is a very high percentage of water. So those food types of foods help to keep our body well hydrated. They feed the organs what and glands what they need to keep us cool and from getting overheated in the summer, because the digesting process is a heat producing function of the body. I joke with, well, it's not a joke, it's really serious, but it is I joke about it because the all-American barbecue is probably the worst meal that we can eat because of it. It's high. If you think about every meat cut is on the grill,
Right.
slash barbecue sauce. Then we have the heavy potato salad and maybe a pasta salad and maybe baked beans. And so all those heavies going in to the digestive tract in the heat of summer, and our body just groans before we take our last bite. If we strategize a little bit, don't give up the social time in the backyard barbecue or the tailgating parties,
It's too much
but
fun.
yes, and take a platter of watermelon slices, or take a cucumber salad, or that vegetable, the garden green vegetable salad, and counterbalance the heaviness that we're taking in with the barbecue. And I promise you'll go home feeling less bloated, less overfilled, and your body will definitely thank you. And sadly, most people will grab the bottle of Tums or antacids
Right.
to kind of counterbalance that. And one of the best nutritional aids that I have ever used in my entire life is a high quality aloe vera juice. And
Oh, okay.
I
I've
aloe
done some
vera,
aloe vera. Do you make your own or how do you?
I don't. I found a
Okay.
company several years ago that probably has the best that I've ever tasted, and their processing process is cleaner and healthier than many that I've seen. And before I go to an event where I know, oh, this is going to be a steak and baked potato evening, or this is going to be the barbecue, or I will drink an ounce or two of aloe before I go, and then I drink an ounce or two of aloe when I get back home before bedtime. And it makes a world of difference. So simple little things can help our bodies to function at a high level, at a comfortable level, and an efficient level. When we eat that heavy, our bodies, we're not being very efficient. It's a very difficult task for the body to digest and break down all that heaviness. As much as I love barbecued ribs, I make sure that I kind of prepare my digestive tract, because after 7 decades, I don't digest like I did when I was 20. So I keep a
Right.
lot of factors in mind so that I can have a good time and not regret it the next day. And again, just enjoy the foods of the season.
Oh, I love that. So the aloe vera juice that you do, so you're saying that you do 1 to 2 ounces before and after a heavy meal. And I know aloe is very healing for the whole gut. So you're
It,
basically almost like putting a little bit of um, a protection on your gut, right? Before
absolutely.
and after, and to help that through. That's a great idea. Okay, I love that.
Yeah, a little, and again, it's a plant-based, it's a garden food. We're using God's garden to help us stay strong. And I do believe that after all the years that I've eaten a lot of meals, I do believe that by choosing foods the closest to nature in their most natural form and in season, that has a lot to do with health and vitality and energy in older years.
Yes, yes. And I was just listening to somebody who said basically where your level of digestion is, if you're starting to have issues, it brings you down the path of, more
Absolutely.
serious issues. So if you can keep your digestive system healthy and clean and functioning well, that's actually going to show your longevity a lot of times. So I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So one thing I know that when we talked last time, you mentioned something about tomatoes. And what were you saying about tomatoes? You
Well,
don't mind sharing.
tomatoes are definitely a summer food. They love the heat, the sunshine, and there's nothing that tastes better than a vine ripened tomato. So in our world of convenience, it's possible now to grow tomatoes all year round in greenhouses, wherever they're grown. But there's a difference. The nutrient value, the flavor. I think a lot of people today probably don't know what a real vine ripened tomato tastes like. So when I have gardened in the past, at the end of the season, before we get that first frost in Colorado, I would leave all my tomatoes on the vine. I would pull the entire vine up out of the ground and hang it upside down in my garage. And I had fresh tomatoes on the vine because the tomatoes will pull the life and chlorophyll out of that vine. So the vine would be just brittle
Right.
as it had dried through time, but there were ripe tomatoes, and I sometimes would have vine ripened tomatoes until Thanksgiving. So I won't buy tomatoes in a store after September, or when, especially when the farmers markets are finished, and I don't need a store purchased or even a restaurant tomato because they're almost a light pink. They're not even that deep tomato red. And a lot of the nutritional experts have discovered that even cooked tomatoes have more nutrient value, digestibility than a fresh tomato. And I know that for people that do have some nightshade issues, tomatoes can be irritating to their systems, but they can eat the canned tomatoes or the spaghetti sauce or marinaras without having any problems. So there are lots of ways to get around some of the challenges that people may have. But again, eating foods in season. I mean, even fruits. I don't purchase fresh fruit at the grocery store unless it's an apple or a pear going in because those are fruits of fall and winter. Cranberries, pomegranates, figs are pretty energizing. Dates rather, dates are pretty energizing. A nice little snack year round. But like I say, the quantity of our fresh vegetables and fresh fruits definitely declines as that last summer season closes down. So again, I eat in season, but come springtime, I am so excited to have fresh berries. Like, okay, it's in season because they're tasteless. I years ago, I bought some fresh blueberries. I think they were grown in New Jersey. I thought, well, okay, that at least they weren't shipped across an ocean, but they were not as fresh tasting as when they're in season in the springtime.
Right, right. Well, and I love how you talk about that because as I told you, we do a farm share
Mhm.
every year. So we get a huge basket every week for 20 weeks of vegetables that we just absolutely look forward to. It just changes our digestive system, our energy. Well, and I just cannot wait for that to start. It starts in mid-June and I'm always like, okay, I can't wait because you feel different when you're eating the fresh produce straight from the farm and you know that it doesn't have chemicals, it doesn't have GMOs, all of that. Can you discuss the difference of, like you were saying, the blueberries that came from New Jersey, the difference of all this food that we have a lot of times, not only the packaged, right, the process, but even just the produce, what the changes and what they even put on a lot of the produce to keep it fresh, how it makes a difference in the nutritional value.
Well, it definitely does. And the soil value has changed in the last, gosh, for sure in the last 100 years.
Right.
That, and I think the farm, and I talk about wheat a fair amount because my dad was a wheat farmer.
Oh,
And I
wow.
know that the wheat that my dad planted 60, 70 years ago is not the same wheat seed that is being cultivated today. I'd never heard of gluten issues when I was a kid, and we
Right.
ate everything wheat fresh. So foods are vegetables and fruits are not much different because with all the technology and all the new techniques, it's easier to get herbicides, pesticides, you get fertilizers. It's bad enough that it's on the surface of the food, but when it can go into the food, we really have to be careful. So if you've got a grower that has as pure as possible of foods, that's an excellent resource. And I like to support local growers, so definitely share that information. But the body just has to go through. It's like I had a doctor explain it one time. It's like everything we eat, you eat a blueberry and all the nutrients of that blueberry are going on a conveyor belt, and your body says, oh, I need vitamin C, I need this, I need this, and it takes what it needs. Well, then it has all these other compounds that are artificial or chemical, and the body's, well, I don't know what to do with that. Where should I put that? Where does that go? So it puts a strain on our, not just the digestion, but the uh, the absorption and the elimination, because again, it's a kind of a foreign thing to the body. The body knows what to do with the B vitamins. The body knows what to do with zinc. The body knows where to put the natural nutrients. So when we add chemicals or synthetics, I say, well, it kind of ends up in a junk drawer in our body. And sadly, that could look like a tumor sometime, or that could look like something else going on in the body, that the body said, I can't detox quickly enough to get this out of the system. So the cleaner we can eat, the better. And I know I've had this question for many years. What if you can't afford organic? Do the best that we can, but definitely wash your food before you eat it. Even in a grocery store, I don't care if it says organic. I'm not 100% convinced that there's not some kind of a spray going in the store at night after they close, because fresh food does decompose more quickly than processed or foods full of chemicals. And I had that happen. I bought some Rocky Ford cantaloupes, and one was on the cabinet just a little bit longer than I needed it to before I peeled it. My kitchen was full of gnats. Like,
Right.
okay, that food is fresh. I got to get that peeling off of there and get that cantaloupe in the refrigerator. So I'm sure you and most of your viewers have probably seen podcasts and posts about people who have saved processed food for months and months and months or years, like all the chemicals in it. This food has not degraded.
Right. And that's
So
scary.
it is
I
very,
don't want to eat that.
well, exactly, because your body doesn't know where to put it. There's no nutrient value really that the body's going to absorb that we get the benefit of the nutritional profile.
Absolutely. So, one thing I wanted to ask is if you have some tips, and I was going to say for two different sections, one for families that are, trying to eat healthier, but busy families. Everybody's so busy nowadays. And also, if you have some for, it sounds like it's just you and your husband now. So, if you have tips for both of those times of life, because that's where a lot of the people that I work with are in either one or the other.
I know for busy families, because both I watch both of my daughters and their lives are crazy chaotic. But I would highly encourage families to involve the kids. Let the kids pick out a recipe, and maybe once a week say, you know what, this is Friday night. We're going to have pizza night, or we're going to have hamburger and French fry night, so that it's not so I think it's a lot different now. I'm seeing many families doing this. But years ago, health food did not have a really great reputation. And when I started in my career 50 some years ago, you mentioned the word health food, and people thought it's going to taste like ground up cardboard. That
Right.
has so changed. But I would strongly recommend, even from a very young age, involve your children in the process. And if you have some seasonal favorites, maybe you only have one seasonal recipe that you fix a week. Start there and then maybe build on it. But I had a woman who had attended one of my classes and purchased one of my books. And she said she took her daughter to Costco or the grocery store with her, and the mother was putting some convenience foods in the grocery basket. And she said her daughter, who might have been 8 or 10 at the time, said, "Mom, now what plant or bush does that grow on?" Because that's always my question when I teach my classes. I suggest before you put those convenience food in your basket, just how far removed is that from the original food? Because the further away it is, you're eating highly processed food, and that opens us up for health challenges. So get the kids involved in a sense of like, okay, what's the junkiest junk food or the most convenient food that you like? Make sure that maybe they get that at least once a month. Because if we're tapering, I think that the kids will notice, like, that doesn't taste that great. I'd rather have your squash casserole.
Right.
But when they come to that on their own and they've helped prepare it or purchase it, or they read the recipe and help pick out the ingredients, there's a whole different mindset for the kids participating. And again, I learned this from gosh, years ago from an archaeologist. Actually, they were just starting to do the DNA samples on dinosaur bones and jaw bones, and they could tell the nutrient value of that animal. And they were talking about how frequently we could eat or junk food, convenience foods, easy foods. And I recommend to my clients start with an 80-20. If you're really trying to, whatever your health challenges, concerns, or goals are, start with 80-20. 80%, hey, we're going to focus on eating clean, healthy, local, and seasonal. 20%, we're not going to apologize for. And as you start to feel better, or the pounds come off, or the brain fog lifts,
Right.
you can up it. You can say, you know what? We're going to do 85-15. So we're going to eat 85% clean, lean, local, seasonal foods. And we're not going to even apologize for the 15%. So by the time you start to see and feel better, you're thinking, you know what? I'm ready for 95.5. I think,
Right.
okay, that's still because I've worked my way to that eating style. And I think that's still for no apology, no exclamation meals. That's still a lot for junky meals. And my junkie is not that junky, but if
Right.
my husband and I want to split a hot lava fudge dessert, I'm going to enjoy every bite of it because
Right.
that's one of my 5%. And that's not even the whole meal, that's just one item. But I don't eat like that every time. So where people get into health compromises or when it's the other way around. Well, we'll eat healthy 10% of the time, 15% of the time, and then the other we don't pay attention to. Americans have become mindless eaters over the years, and I see that starting to shift, which is delightful. And the same even for I hear that a lot. I have a lot of women friends that are by themselves. They, oh, I just hate to cook for one, and I get it. I'm to the season. I don't always like to even cook for two, but again, choose that. What does my 80-20 or 85-15% of the time look like? So if I want to go out with the girlfriends and we want to have that glass of wine and our dessert, there's no guilt, there's no shame. They're like, hey, this is my fun time with my girlfriends, but tomorrow's going to be my salad day or my grilled vegetables or my avocado toast or whatever. So it doesn't have to be that difficult. I'm all for simplicity at this season of my life. I've done a lot of what you're doing now at your season, and I
Right.
love the simplicity. But this was the first year I didn't plant a garden, and I really struggled with that. But there were a variety of reasons, and I thought I just can't add one more thing to my plate. So I do miss
The
picking those
gardening.
fresh tomatoes and
Yes.
those fresh cucumbers. But I had to make some other choices, and so it was visit the farmers markets and choose as wisely in the season.
That you could. Okay. And I love that. I love how you talk about, doing the gardening. And it's hard in Colorado, especially this year with this drought. We decided not to, and just because the drought was so rough. But we miss it too. But one of the things I wanted to say is you and many people back in the day grew up in a farm, right? Or they
Right.
had people that have farms, they would go and help. So I have my kids, we go every year and we go to the farm and we actually pick because it's so interesting to learn. Oh my gosh, that's what broccoli looks like. It grows like that. You cut it here, and just all of that our kids and just even as an adult that I learned because I didn't have that opportunity to grow up on a farm like you did. And you said your dad grew wheat. Was there anything else that you had on your farm? Did you have animals? Did you have other crops?
We did. Wheat was his summer crop, and then he grew a grain. We called it Milo. It's a little red grain. It's beautiful. Mostly went for um, cattle feed, a lot of bird seed, but not no food crops. They do after I was already out of high school. I think the area started growing field corn, which the feedlots would use to feed cattle, which is not a natural food for cattle, but that's what
Right.
was being done. And we had gardens near the house, and so we had the fresh produce for our personal use. But we did dogs and cats and chickens and ducks and my sister did have a horse, small animals, not well, so I grew up on raw milk and fresh eggs from the chicken's nest.
And that was normal in those days, right?
It was, and we would throw a raw. My mother would fix us a smoothie before smoothies was even a thing, and she had probably frozen strawberries because we would even do this in the winter. But she'd throw some frozen strawberries and maybe a banana in with fresh cow's milk, cream still in it, and a raw egg or two, and blend it
Wow.
up. And because we had to catch a school bus by 7 o'clock.
That's a
So,
good protein.
so now when I first started hearing the concerns over eating raw eggs, I'm like, what are you talking about? I've eaten raw eggs all my life.
Right. Well, especially because you knew exactly where. That's what I tell people. When I have my chickens out here, I know exactly where the eggs have been, so that it's that how they were treated, how everything. So
You know what they're eating.
absolutely, absolutely.
Bugs and
Well,
weeds.
Connie, I wanted to thank you so much for your time. Was there any last parting words that you wanted to share with us, especially for people that are wanting to live, a long life, healthy life like you have? Do you have any tips for people that are wanting to kind of mimic what you're doing and kind of change what their processes have been?
Again, I go back to the simplicity, and that's part of that is the season of my life that I'm in. But I think, again, young families with kids, life is just fast. So try to make food a more relaxing part of your day. That when you come together, the family table is the best thing that families can do to gather together, but keep it simple. And again, cook the food as clean, get it as clean as possible, and just savor every bite. I know that our mental thing is if we think we're not supposed to be eating it, or I know this isn't very healthy, we send negative messages all the way down to the digestion and even elimination, because we know that the gut is it's our neurotransmitter center. So if stress going in, it's going to get here and be all the more stressed, and we don't want our kids to grow up that way. So involve the family and just savor the flavor of the season. If anyone would like to pick up my books, my website is wellnessforallseasons.com. They can order the hardback or the full hard copy, or I have 4 season digital books that kind of go into spring, summer, fall, and winter. And colorful recipes on the pages, and season is divided by seasons, and they might just give them some recipes to start with.
Right.
So
I love
enjoy.
that. So we're going to put a link for your book If you can just send me that and your website, we'll put that all in the notes. And then that way people can grab that and have those ideas because I love just that way of thinking that we can eat local, we can eat in
Yes.
season, and in the long run, it will probably save money too, because if you're eating locally and supporting our local farmers, you're going to be feeling better and it's not going to be as costly.
I absolutely, and I hear that a lot. The people say I can't afford to eat that healthy, or I can't afford to eat organic. And I was a single mom for several years. I get that. But I fully believe that we will pay one way or the other. We might pay up front for
True.
healthier foods, or we're going to pay on the end side with doctor visits, medications, not feeling well. And I decided early in my years that was not the path I wanted to take. I had exposure to too many healthy women living with vitality. I thought that's the way I want to go. So it does make a difference, but just think about it, pray about it. Farmers markets have some great deals. I mean, I see several fill a bag for a very minimal amount of money. So there are ways to do it if your health is really important to you.
Absolutely. And if you're not buying the processed stuff, you save a lot of money there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, and taking the time to pass this down to, other generations. I think that's huge and it's so needed, that mentorship that many of us, like I said, I never had that farm experience until I was an adult. So thank you for doing that.
My
And just
pleasure.
wish you a wonderful day, ma'am. And we will just go ahead and send me your information. I'll make sure I get it all in the notes for you.
Thank you. This was a delight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.